All is one reflections, everyone. I am Priestess Olaia Ifa Shabi, and we are here for Siren's Lounge tonight. We are covering the Sacred Womb, Part 2, Womb Wellness, and Doulas. So before I get started, I'm going to go ahead and send a couple alerts out. Make sure people are tuning in. So give me a few moments and we will go ahead and get started. Just give me a couple minutes. When you enter in the chat, go ahead and drop a mermaid and let me know you're here. Let us know where you're from. And we will get started in just a moment. All is one, Priestess Omisika. All is one, Priestess Oridapo. Okay, looks like we got a couple folks joining us. Go ahead and drop a mermaid when you enter the chat. Let us know where you're coming from, where you're at tonight. I am in Portland, Oregon. My guest is also here with me. We are here in Portland, Oregon. It was a really beautiful day today. Really beautiful day. I'm going to drop this link one more place and then we can go ahead and get going. Okay. Plantation, Florida. Katiana, Priestess Omisika. She's in Plantation, Florida. Thank you for joining. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, do the intro. I am Olaia Ifa Shabi. I am an initiated priestess and minister in training with the Orisha Hoodoo Institute. I am the owner of Yemiya's Inclinations, a spiritual offerings boutique specializing in customized spiritual tools. I'm a community priestess by way of career as the executive director and co-founder of the Black Community of Portland, a grassroots nonprofit here in Portland, Oregon. And I am everything you need and more. I am your self-love plug. This is Siren's Lounge. Welcome. Tonight, we are talking about the sacred womb. We are in part 2 of the sacred womb tonight, and I have a very special guest with me here tonight. Her name is Tiara Salmon. Tiara is a mama of 3 beautiful beings and has a background in organizing and reproductive justice, housing justice, and economic justice in the Portland metropolitan area. She is a doula, a traditional midwife, an herbalist, and a consultant. She has called Portland her home for most of her life and has a deep love for all the beauty the area has to offer. Tiara has a micro farm and enjoys tending the soil near her, organizing for more sustainable systems, and cultivating community care. She enjoys putting her hands in the soil and spending time with our great bodies of water as often as she is able. Me too. Me too. Her philosophy around care work and public health are rooted in recognizing body autonomy and sovereignty, as well as engaging in liberation practices that give space for each individual to act in their own agency, power, and purpose. She believes in crafting her own herbal blends and care work that is relevant to the current culture and climate we are living through so that we can heal, grow, create, and thrive together. Welcome, Tiara. Thank you so much for joining me on Siren's Lounge tonight. I truly, truly appreciate it. I'm so excited for this conversation. Please go ahead and share a little bit about yourself.
As am I. I'm grateful to be invited here. So thank you. You just shared a little bit about me. I was led into this work as a friend, a sister, and then a young mom. I started getting the call to birth when I was 14. A girlfriend that was teen mom and needed support. And then I had my first at 16, and um, I've done, no matter what kind of work I was doing, my friends always called me to their birth. So it was a really natural process. I didn't get this initial, call from the heavens. I got a call on the phone from my friends to come to their births. So that's what brought me into birth work, and what brought me into working with herbs was being a single mom. I didn't have the money to buy a bunch of products for my clients, so I started growing them.
Definitely. I have been a proud recipient of some of your homegrown herbs. I remember I was in desperate need of some comfrey, and you were like, I have some comfrey. And I was like, yes. Comfrey, I love comfrey for skin, so I use it in my baths a little bit, you know. And so I was so pleased. And that comfrey, actually, you gave me quite a bit of comfrey, and it lasted me quite a while. Like,
Oh, yay.
legitimately, it lasted me quite a while. So I definitely vouch for the herbs and plants and food that you grow in your micro garden. I often think of your garden as an urban garden because you're in the city, it's micro, it's conventional, you know, and I just adore your garden. It's really beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very welcome. So, oftentimes thoughts and questions bubble up. I know they do with me. Some we've never voiced, and others maybe we've asked but never received the answers that we needed. And as women, there are conversations that we've been conditioned to avoid, and truths we've been taught to bury, and experiences we've been made to feel ashamed of. And this series and this live show is about breaking the silence. The goal is to create a space where we can have raw, necessary, and liberating conversations that often go unspoken. And our womb space is one of them. I can
Mhm.
remember being a young girl and not really knowing what was going on with the changes in my body, and they were rapidly happening. So, having the conversation, like on a deeper level than just your period is going to come once a month, this is what you need to do, would have probably really helped me out. And so, Siren's Lounge, this womb series, is really the start of that conversation for myself. I will be starting a story time about my womb journey, my womb health journey. And I
Mm,
just wanted to just say a couple of my key points for wanting to talk about womb wellness, womb health, what our doulas, who are our doulas, you know, who are our traditional birth workers. And also next month we'll be talking about healing, you know, is just the want for women to talk about things more openly, not be so hush hush about their experiences, what they're going through for embarrassment, because we all are going to go through these things. There's nothing to be embarrassed about, and we're all going to have different experiences. We may not all experience everything exactly the same, but we will have some remnants of the same type of experience, right? So having the
mhm.
conversations with like-minded women, or even just women that are older than me, is my favorite. I've always been a fan of having older friends since I was a kid. You know, and I remember being just a young girl, and my one of my older teen girlfriends had a baby at 14. So I've been around babies and for a very long time, and just having a clear understanding of the power of our womb would have just helped me. So my hope for having this series is that having this conversation will open us up to you know, share our stories, seek clarity, empower each other with knowledge and vulnerability and truth. Because the importance of listening to our womb that I have learned over the years, it's vital to our well-being. It's vital to our health. You know, if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. And if you're not ever told that, it's just, oh, take this pill and it'll go away, but it never goes away. You know, like there's just certain things that I've experienced and other women in my life have experienced that this conversation is so very important.
Yeah, it really is. And I appreciate you opening it up because so many of the imbalances or dis-ease in the womb space is from either a condensation or stagnation of energy that needs to be processed. And when we're holding and we're not talking about it and we're not sharing and we've got all this guilt or I'm the only one, I'm just dealing with this, I need to deal with it quietly, we're not able to move that energy.
Exactly. And when there's no one talking about the energy aspects of our womb space and the ancestral wisdom and the lineage power that comes through our womb space, it
Yeah.
makes it very difficult for women to actually understand what it is that they need to be talking about, right? And what they need to be learning, or the questions even that they need to be asking. I will ask the most random off brand question if I feel like I don't know the answer, because it's a question that popped up in my head. So obviously there has to be an answer or something that can lead me to the right question that I should be asking,
Yeah.
right? So that is a big thing for me. The ancestral connection, just spiritually, energetically, you know, our DNA wise, like it's a lot. And to not have that conversation and to not be able to say, oh, here's a movie you can pop in and it'll explain everything that you need to know, or play this movie with your daughter when she's, you know, coming into womanhood and, you know, her cycle is coming on or something. I haven't found that. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, I know what I need to be doing. I need to be creating these materials, having these conversations, asking some of these questions that I know people want to ask, and then also just reaching out to community to ask some of the questions as well. And so I am so happy to get into some of these community questions that we have, because we got a few questions from the community. I've been asking for weeks. I've been asking folks everywhere: YouTube, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, you know, my close friends, my coven sisters, everyone. I've been on them like, you got questions about your womb?
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. What questions do you have? And so let's get into these questions. I'm going to go ahead and pop the questions up on the screen, because I feel like it can help kind of guide some of our conversation tonight, just to kind of have some of
Mhm.
these questions. So, this first question that we have is, what are the best herbs, foods, and supplements to support womb health?
This is a great question. I think it's a complex question, right? So, what are the best? I mean, I think that this question is um, there's a wide variety of herbs and foods and supplements that are great for womb health. I think right off the bat, some of the first herbs that come to my mind are things that are going to tonify the womb. So, any of your leaves for your berries, blackberry leaves, strawberry leaves, we all know red raspberry leaf tea is good for tonifying the uterus. Motherwort is also great for tonifying the uterus. But then we also want to think about the spleen channel and some things that are great because the spleen channel regulates blood. And of course, we have this is where a womb cleanses itself monthly, or maybe a little bit longer depending on your cycle length. But really taking good care of the spleen channel means that we're eating dark foods that are rich in, um, they're going to be rich in antioxidants, they're going to be rich in iron, and they're going to be cooked and easy to digest for the body. Things that are warm, that are well seasoned. Look, our ancestors knew we need well seasoned food, right? Things that
Yeah.
are heating, that are warming for the body, is going to help that flow of blood, and um, the spleen channel directs the body of like tells it when to bleed and when to stop bleeding. So eating a diet that's going to be high in like purple foods, dark green foods, red foods, like foods that are rich in color and then well seasoned, um, with good warming spices. I see a question in the chat. What does tonifying mean?
Mhm.
So, just like when we tone our muscles, though, that is going to tone the uterus muscle. The uterus is actually like the strongest muscle in a woman's body. And so, if it's very strong, when you have your your cycle, it's going to have really healthy contractions and release pattern, so that you're going to have less cramps, but it's going to be really effective at releasing the blood and the lining, that it needs to shed for that cycle. The other supplement that I would say is really good for womb health, really overall, but including womb health, is magnesium. A lot of us are depleted of magnesium. Our telephones, actually, the Wi-Fi bubble leaches magnesium from our bodies, so most people are magnesium deficient, and it works on that like contraction release pattern for all of our muscles, including our soft tissue muscles like the womb and the heart. I think here we also want to talk about that womb heart connection, like staying open. um, One way that I tend to that womb heart connection with herbs is yoni steaming. And when we're yoni steaming, we're manifesting and we're meditating from that root chakra place, and allowing our heart, ourselves, our intuition, our ori, to be open to receive from that really grounded place.
Ashe. I am a advocate, huge advocate for yoni steaming,
Mhm.
because yoni steaming, I have essentially managed to minimize my endometriosis symptoms that I have from yoni steaming, just creating my own blends. And so
Mhm.
I'm a huge advocate for yoni steaming being a key holistic healing method for women when it comes to our wombs. And I am just so happy that you brought that up, because it is a thing. Like, I have had a really difficult time in Portland actually getting women to want to yoni steam. And
Yeah.
I don't know why they are, apprehensive for steaming, but I've managed to bring some women over, to the light side, you
Mhm.
know, and just pairing it with rituals. Definitely do a lot of heart chakra work, a lot of root work, a lot of sacral, and solar plexus work, to be honest. When I'm doing my yoni steaming, and I'm actually sitting in my little yoni steaming space tonight.
Okay.
So in my little 2-bedroom apartment, I have a designated space for
Yeah.
my self love and for my yoni steaming. And so I'm very happy that you brought yoni steaming to the surface in this conversation, because it is definitely a key like healing method that we can use to not only like introduce these herbs and healing remedies to our body, but also just to connect on a deeper level to the divine within, right? To
Yeah.
having the our heart and our heart and our ori be in synced and in one. So yes, thank you. I love I love that. Let's go ahead and get to this next question.
Okay. What are some
What
natural ways? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
What are some natural ways a woman can increase fertility especially if she does not use modern day technology. So this is a fantastic question. I love this question. Um, we as a people are seeing more and more challenges with fertility because of environmental toxins, things that are in our food, um, our lifestyle in general. You know, we're
Mhm.
so, because of the economy, we're so go, 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 hustle, 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 that people have a harder time slowing down and resting in the way that their body really needs them to, in order for their cycle to do what it needs to do, for their autonomic nervous system to rest and relax. And Black women in particular have a constant onslaught of, even if it's in very low doses, cortisol, which cortisol is, um, it is a hormone that needs to be made from other hormones. And one of the hormones that it steals, or that it uses to be made, is progesterone. Progesterone is very important for our fertility. It's one of the reasons why we see an increased rate of miscarriage and low birth weight, early um, premature births in our community,
Mhm.
because the rate of progesterone is lowered because the influx of cortisol is higher for us.
Mm.
So I
That's
love this
very
question.
interesting. Yes.
Um, this is not just about herbs. This is about our care practices, our rest practices. How are we soothing our nervous system? Can you get some
Mhm.
breathing in? Can you go for your walk? Can you reserve, even if it's 10 minutes a day, just for you? Can you take some time to say, can you say no? Can you say no? Man,
Mhm.
we got to say no. You know, this is important. It's being able to set boundaries so that we reserve energy for ourselves. Um,
Absolutely.
as far as some natural ways to increase fertility, um, oh my gosh, this could be such a deep question. Um, you know, you want to be making sure to get good antioxidants in your body. So again, all of those berries, all of those dark fruits and vegetables, you want to be, or also adding, yes, set those boundaries. Set those boundaries. Boundaries are really important. And that also means boundaries for ourselves around
Mhm.
what our routines look like. Are we making sure to pour into our temple? What are we pouring into our temple, and how much? And, it doesn't take a ton of time or money to just slow down and be intentional, not only with the foods that we eat, but the messages that we take in, the
Mhm.
messages we take in from others, the messages we take in from ourselves. Self-love. Again, I'm going to come back to the yoni steams. There are herbs specifically that you can use to help increase your fertility. When yoni steaming, you can use it at specific times in your cycle to be able to promote healthy egg production, and just prepping the womb for, um, prepping the womb for ovulation.
Yeah. Definitely. I actually have a Yoni Steam client down in California, and I created a have a baby by me yoni steaming and
Yeah, that's so
cleansing
cute.
method. And so I have my very first client. She's down in Southern California, and she is like loving her yoni steaming, loving the herbs. At one point she told me that um she just was like, she instantly felt the because when I try to explain to women, when you do yoni steaming, like it's literally going to enhance your essence as a woman. It's going to bring that out a little bit. And so she experienced the enhancement of her essence, and her husband being like, ooh, what is all this energy going on over here, So it was really beautiful to hear and witness. So I'm so excited for her journey. So yes, I definitely am an advocate for yoni steaming, and um, creating custom steams that align with our cycles,
Mm-hmm.
because no woman is directly exactly the same.
Mm-mm.
And so I do custom regimens and steam blends for my clients. So I
Yep. And I
I
think
do.
I really appreciate you sharing that you do custom blends. I think that in this day and age, there are a lot of people who might advertise like, these all of this steam or this tea blend is going to make you fertile, but it really depends on the person, what they're experiencing, what their constitution is like, what they need to increase their
Mhm,
fertility. They might be estrogen dominant, or they might have higher testosterone levels, or they might not be ovulating, they might be
mhm,
inovulatory. So figuring out what the root cause is for the imbalance.
mhm,
Um, I also strongly recommend getting in, um, like you can work with herbs, but you can also add in like inositol is great for our blood sugar regulation and egg quality, as well as NAC and CoQ10 can improve your egg quality.
mhm. Yeah,
Um, yeah,
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I went to Morocco last year, and while we were in Isarera, we were introduced to a herbalist there, and she was so she was just so wonderful. She invited me to come back and study under her. So maybe someday I will go back to Morocco and study under this herbalist. And she is actually like really well known for helping women who cannot conceive. So I was able to pick up a couple of her steaming blends that she has, and she had in that, you know. So yes, yoni steaming to increase your fertility, but I would just say be cautious and ask what the herbs are. And
mm-hmm,
really ask your doctor when you're going in and having these labs and having these tests run exactly what that really means. They're
mm-hmm.
going to doctor talk you down to where you're
Yeah,
not going to be able to understand what it is that means. And big pharma's medicine may not be helping, because really you could be taking this herb to do what big pharma is not going to do for you. So labs, testing, procedures, ask all the questions so that you can not only have you know, your medical guidance, but you can also have some holistic ways to kind of teeter out what you're actually missing.
right.
Why do the
And,
custom steams?
what I found is that herbs are more effective for me. That Western medication can often be just like too strong. I have a lot of side effects. It doesn't feel like it works for me, or like I have these, like I said, random side effects. And so I think, there's that ancestral connection that you talked about earlier, understanding and knowing what's going on in your body, and
Mhm,
then asking your ori, what do I need? Sitting in womb steams to ask that womb space, what are the messages you have for me? The body knows. We are carrying our grandmother's blood and bones in our DNA, and they know. They know.
mhm,
We know. That means we know. It's in us.
mhm.
And
It's in
just
us.
being
We
able to
don't
like,
need. Yeah, I was just gonna say we don't need the doctors all the time. I have a naturopath doctor. I will take my blood labs from my regular doctor to my naturopath and be like, this is what they gave me, this is what they told me, and this is what my goals are. And it's
yeah,
always I'm always switching up my eating habits, subtracting foods. One food I'm really having a difficult time with getting rid of is mushrooms. But
Oh,
like
I love mushrooms.
I love
No.
mushrooms. I love mushrooms, but I have endometriosis, so there are some things, some foods that even though they're really good for us, for my condition, I need to not have certain fungi foods, right? So mushrooms is one, so I don't eat them too often, but every now and again I will get me some mushrooms and deep fry them bad boys. Um, so definitely, there are lots of natural ways to increase your fertility with herbs. You can drink tea with these special herbs as well. Most herbs that we are using or introducing for yoni steaming, you can also drink. It just really depends. Certain quantities of certain herbs, I would say, the measurements will matter.
Yeah.
But for the most part, all herbs are, I won't say all herbs, but majority of the herbs that we're using are ingestible.
Yeah. And when you talk about the measurements, yeah, is it palatable? So just make sure that it's palatable for you.
Hmm. Definitely. Let's get to the next question.
Okay.
So, this question, is there a network of Black midwives and doulas that can be found across the country? Before we get into this question, let's just have a little conversation and a little dialogue about Black midwives and doulas. I would like to just know what the exact difference
Yeah.
are between the two. Because I have been on this womb healing journey for myself for quite a while, and I have not birthed any children yet. But first, I wanted to be a doula, like maybe like 8 years ago. I wanted to be a doula so bad because it's just
Mm.
like it is. I love children and all the things. I did end up going that way for various reasons, but let's just have a little quick conversation about midwives or traditional birth workers, and then doulas, and what the difference are, and then we can get to this question.
Okay. I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible. And I want to start out with midwifery in the United States. So, or maybe I'll start from before then. Is in all of our villages, tribes, clans, we lived communally. We had our aunties and our cousins and our sisters, and they would act as our doulas. They would act as our supports. They might act as our midwives as well. And here in this nation, um, in the United States, okay, I see this question. What are your thoughts on pap smears? And I'm going to come back to this right after I answer this question. In this country, when colonization was starting, the colonizers did not believe that midwives was an important, they looked at it as a very lowly profession. So instead of bringing their esteemed midwives from their own countries, they stole African midwives and they brought them here and enslaved them. And those were the midwives that caught the white babies, the black babies, whoever's babies. They were catching the babies here for a very long time. It wasn't until white male obstetricians started studying surgery and obstetrics that then they they did a smear campaign against black midwives because the black midwives were getting so much more business than them, because that's who everybody had been birthing with for so long. Despite the fact that they didn't wash their hands and people were getting sick from them, they did this whole smear campaign to make it to where people would not go see black midwives. Then they made it to where you had to be registered by these white nurses. Our black grand elder midwives, they took their tools, they took their herbs. They said, you can have this little bag with these little supplies. And so that was the birth of certified nurse midwives. The history in this country is that we had traditional midwives. Our history in the motherland is that we had traditional midwives, that there was a apprenticeship model that passed down the knowledge of, say, normal physiological birth, and then knowing when someone has deviated from normal physiological birth. We sit on our hands. We sit on our hands until there is a problem, until you've come outside of your norm. Whereas the hospital or, obstetricians are always looking for pathology. They're always looking for something to be wrong and to fix it. They introduce these interventions, and that's why the United States has the highest infant maternal mortality rate of any industrialized nation, but it is much higher in our community because of racism.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to go back to talking about the relationship between doula and midwife. So, again, a symptom of colonization is that we do not live in villages or tribes or in our clans any longer. Most people do not have, and because of the way that the economy is set up, we don't have access to our aunties and our grandmas and our mamas and our sisters to come and care for us when we are getting ready to have our baby and after. So the that's where the profession of doulas was created. Was that we needed, I always tell people I'm basically a professional sister. So I'm both. I'm trained as both a doula and a midwife. And when somebody hires me as their doula, they're hiring me as a professional sister to come and cheer you on, to rub your back, to feed you, to give you the emotional and physical support that you need.
Mm-hmm.
Whisper sweet nothings in your ear when you think that there's no way you could go any further. And as a midwife, because I'm also a midwife, my role is to keep an eye on all of your vitals. Are your vitals stable? And are they around your baseline? So people have different baselines, right? This is one of the reasons why we use so many interventions in the hospital, is that they don't have time to really know each individual's baseline. But midwives spend a lot more time with you. They're going to spend like a whole hour in appointment with you, getting to know your eating habits, how you cope with stress, what's going on in your life, um, and then doing counseling around understanding your labs, your ultrasounds, your vitals, and then doing counseling around keeping you um, low risk for better birth outcomes. And our out of hospital midwives um, have like a 2% cesarean rate, whereas the hospitals can have 30 or 40% cesarean rates.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. I have a friend here in town, and she just gave birth to the most beautiful little chocolate baby boy. And this is her second at-home birth. And
Uh-huh.
she had two births in the hospital, and now she's had
Mhm.
two births at home. And she's just like, if I would have known, I would have birthed all my babies at home,
Yeah.
and I would have had a
Yeah.
doula for all my babies.
Yeah.
And she said it just makes a world of a difference because that care is there and the
Mhm.
nurturing that you need while you're preparing to bring a soul through your portal and after. So I really admire doulas and birth workers because the birth the birth death rates in black women and our babies is just, it's too high. And I just wish that we could all have a doula when we get pregnant, like as soon as you're like, okay, I just found out I'm pregnant. First appointment, the doctor says, do you want a doula or do you want a midwife? Like, I just feel like that should be a given.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be whether you have appropriate insurance or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. And that's one of the roles that I play is as a doula liaison at a nonprofit in the Portland metro area, PNFF. We pair folks with culturally specific doulas and at no cost to them.
Mhm.
So Whether you are, there's folks that qualify for OHP, and then there are also folks that have private insurance that they're just in that balance of like, I got just enough to pay my bills, but not anything else. And
Mm-hmm.
so we serve both communities,
That's
folks that are
beautiful.
in that area.
That's beautiful. So, is there a network of Black midwives and doulas that can be found across the country?
There is. So, the System Midwife Directory is a list of Black um, Black midwives, and there are a lot of and Black doulas across the country. And I can put this in the chat, the link to that. Let me see.
Mm-hmm. And then I'll put it on the screen.
Okay. And so when you go to the directory, you can there's going to be in the middle of the page, there's going to be, what do I need? And you're going to say a midwife, a wellness practitioner, womb fertility support. You could say a doula, and then you put in your city and state, or state, and then you search, and it's going to pull up everybody who's in your region.
That is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, if you are expecting, just had a baby and need some postpartum support, if you have any friends or relatives who are expecting, give them this link so they can get them a midwife or a doula or whatever they have in their area, but so that they can have some added birth support.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Let's get to this next question. Is there a natural remedy for recurring bacteria vaginosis?
This is such a good question. I think that it really depends on what's causing it. You might want to look at your diet.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually struggled with reoccurring BV before in the past. And my issue was that my partner's pH was throwing my pH off. And my naturopath said, why don't you try doing like a high dose of vitamin C right after you have sex? Because we are naturally more acidic, and they are more base.
Mm-hmm.
Their secretions, their semen is more base. And so when we're able to take in that vitamin C, for me, when I took in that vitamin C, it leveled out my body's pH. So I didn't have a reaction. And you're right. Yes, it could be the partner.
Mm-hmm.
Some other things that you can do are there are specific herbs like rosemary, oregano. Another good one for BV is mugwort, like
Mm-hmm.
wormwood. These are all really good for cleansing, and they're antimicrobial that you might want to mix into your yoni steam herbs. Garlic. A lot of people use garlic where you're like using it like a tampon, where you
What?
just slide it up in there. Listen, don't poke
What?
holes.
What?
Don't poke holes.
Don't put holes in the garlic, okay?
It's gonna
Oh my
be burnt. It's
God.
gonna be hot.
Yeah,
But
garlic is actually very
garlic,
spicy. It took me a little bit to actually learn that.
it's a
Putting garlic
natural
in my food when
antibiotic.
I'm cooking. And it's
Mm-hmm.
actually very spicy. So if you are going to try the garlic method, do not poke holes in it.
Don't poke holes in it. Your yoni might be hot.
Hot like fire, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I for my yoni steams, I've been using mugwort and rosemary are the two that I use for. I have a client who has recurring BV, And
Mhm.
I'm encouraging my client to steam while they're not like on their actual cycle to kind of
Yeah.
really get that medicine in there, because just one session isn't going to do it if you're yoni steaming. But I
Yeah.
also agree with changing your diet, or actually, I never heard of the vitamin C thing, so
Mhm.
that's really kind of good to hear. But I'm a big fan of changing the diet,
Yeah, and increasing hydration, like,
water
is
intake.
are you
Yeah.
really are you really condensed in your body?
Mm-hmm.
You wanna make sure that you're well hydrating, and people will stick a clove of it anywhere, anywhere, Jordan. Um, and yeah, mugwort and rosemary, oregano too is really well known for that, like, antimicrobial property.
Mm-hmm.
You can put those in your yoni steam. All of those, like lavender is also really good.
Yeah.
Rose is astringent and is going to be cleansing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Those
Mm-hmm.
are all good herbs to add. And drink your bitters. Drink your bitters.
Yes. I haven't gotten to the bitter stage yet.
Bitters can be
But
hard. Bitters
I
can be
I
hard. They
did
don't
actually
taste good.
do a parasite cleanse once with some bitters. Me and my
Mhm.
partner, we just kind of, and it's a taste for sure. It's for sure a taste, but yeah, the bitters, change your diet, high water intake, rosemary, mugwort, rose, lavender, all really great herbs. If you have questions, definitely hit me up. Custom regimen, custom blends right here for you. We're going to get to this next question.
Mhm.
What wellness tips do you have for a mom who has just given birth and needs postpartum support?
Well, I think the first thing is to ask your community. It is great to have a doula, and there are a lot of resources for doulas, but talk to your community. Those are the people that are going to be with you long term, especially if you have older kids. Sometimes I recommend, like, hey, can somebody just like every Thursday pick up this other child, spend some time with them so that I have a moment with this baby, so that I have a moment to rest or whatever it is. Um, Check in around food. If during pregnancy you can make a plan for folks to come in over and feed you for the first, at least the first couple of weeks, I really recommend folks, I recommend in the bed, on the bed, and near the bed regimen. So I recommend be in the bed for 2 weeks. That means your boobs are out, you're working on breastfeeding, you're resting, you're getting complete and total pelvic floor rest. Not only because it's going to slow up your bleeding and you just pushed a gigantic thing in comparison to your anatomy out of it,
Mm-hmm.
um, but this is going to prevent uterine prolapse, bladder prolapse, uterine, or not uterine, but incontinence in your wisdom years later on in your life. It's not normal for people to pee on themselves when they sneeze and they laugh, but this happens when you give birth and you haven't had a chance to rest, have pelvic rest. So complete pelvic rest for 2 weeks. On the bed means you're getting up for the next 2 weeks and you're moving around a little bit, but you're not taking on any major chores. You're not going to Target. We ain't going to Target anyways. We're boycotting Target, but you're not going to IKEA. You're not going to Costco. These are not big, long walks. You're going out, and the moment you start bleeding, you're coming right back home and you're resting, putting your feet up. And then 2 weeks near the bed is again, now you might be picking up little chores, going out into community a little bit more, but sparingly. And if your bleeding picks up, it's time to go rest. Now, in community, there's a number of resources here in the Portland metro area. We have, for For postpartum doulas, we have PNFF where I work, and we have Community Doula Alliance, as well as Sacred Roots, which was like Big Mama first all Black doula resource for our community that we don't charge, that you can get connected with a doula. So Sacred Roots is an offshoot of Black Parent Initiative, Community Doula Alliance, and Portland New Family Fund all have doulas that you can be matched with and get postpartum doula support. I strongly recommend folks to look in their area for a postpartum doula. This isn't a person who's going to come around and just be all up in your business, but they're going to draw your bath for you, make food for you, help with laundry, maybe do the dishes. If you just need, some of the postpartum doula work that I've done is I've got a client who can't get to her doctor's appointments because she's got a baby and she's got this other little one and she just can't focus. And sometimes that looks like a postpartum doula going to your appointment with you, hanging out with kids in the lobby, and you get to have your appointment. It's really important that moms still are being poured into. So that could be a doctor's appointment or massage or acupuncture or pelvic floor therapy. If you've got some stuff going on, if you are leaking pee or you've got pelvic pressure, look into a pelvic floor therapist as well.
I've had pelvic floor therapy, y'all, and I don't have no children. It doesn't hurt. I promise. And it actually, you can just learn a couple things about the anatomy of your reproductive system and also just gaining control of the muscles in your reproductive system is really what it's about, and really how you can stop that incontinence and like the dribbling of the pee, the unwanted pee. You can definitely do that. I recently just had to have my pelvic floor muscles examined. Okay. I've been dealing with endometriosis probably my whole entire life. And I am a 40-year-old woman with no children and on the journey to get there. And I definitely had to have my pelvic floor muscles examined, and it definitely was different. But at the end of the day, I just was paying attention to the sensations and the things that I was feeling to be able to identify different parts within my anatomy to really be able to say, oh, this is what it is. It's this area. It's this muscle. So it definitely can do some good if you are having any type of issues. Pelvic floor therapy.
I'm glad you talk about pre like whether it's preconception or you're just a woman. You're just a person with a womb, right? Not just, but you are a person with a womb.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people have PCOS or endometriosis, adenomyosis, polyps or fibroids. And I've had a mixture of a combination of things myself and gone to pelvic floor therapists. And not only is it your pelvic floor that you're feeling relief when you get pelvic floor therapy, but our pelvic floor is really like the thing that controls what happens above and below. You might notice your knee pain goes away, or your upper back or your neck pain goes away, or you have more mobility in your spine by treating that pelvic floor. So, yeah, highly recommend pelvic floor therapist.
Yes, and the first time I saw a pelvic floor therapist, they had these little cylinder things. I was like, I am not using that, and it really was to help me control my muscles.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why I didn't want to use it is because it wasn't rounded; it was flat, so it wasn't it wasn't really made for my vagina specifically.
Yeah.
I don't know about everybody else, but I'll speak for myself. And what that introduced me to was yoni eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Yoni eggs can also be used to help tone our pelvic floor and muscles and our vaginal canal as well. So there are so many different methods that we can use to like just have good womb health like for ourselves. Okay, let's get to this next question because we still got a couple left.
Okay.
What are the best herbs for PCOS if I want to have a baby?
This is a good question. Again, like there's ovulatory, there's like some folks are inovulatory and some are not. So it depends, it really depends on the person, what, how much of what you're gonna do. But and then there are symptoms like very painful periods. Um, PCOS impacts our blood sugar regulation. So oftentimes the doctor will put you on it's a diabetes medication. I forget what it's called.
Is it metformin?
Yes, metformin. So
Mm-hmm.
some things that you can do are support blood sugar regulation, um, include adaptogenic herbs because you really want to help your autonomic nervous system, um, and then herbs that deal with pain and hormonal imbalance. With PCOS, we may see estrogen dominance, more testosterone in the body than we need, and low progesterone, which can impact our cycle. So, some things that are helpful for blood sugar regulation, I already talked about inositol, which is also going to help with egg quality. And then cinnamon is great for blood sugar regulation. I would say not just like cinnamon on your food, but like a cinnamon tincture, strong. Some adaptogenic herbs to help your autonomic nervous system and like calm down the cortisol so that you're supporting your progesterone function are ashwagandha. um, Tulsi is a really yummy and delicious adaptogen. The ginsengs, shatavari are good herbs for pain. One of my children struggles with PCOS, and she has such painful periods that sometimes she's like throwing up or just like crying, writhing in pain. Some
Okay.
herbs that are good for the pain are black cohosh, motherwort, cramp bark.
Mm-hmm.
Bee balm is another one that I grow that's good for that. And now this mix of herbs is going to be bitter and nasty tasting. So what I do is I mix those spices in there like a chai. So I'm going to add lots of ginger and turmeric and cinnamon and hibiscus and cloves. Hibiscus is not like a spicy one, but it's good for tonifying the womb as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to help with pain, as well as like you may want to add in one of those tonifying herbs like raspberry leaves or blackberry leaves or strawberry leaves. I think that you could add all of them or one of them, combination, and like be led by your own wisdom. You'll know which one is the right one for you.
Guarantee
Uh,
you do a Ori cleanse before you get to mixing and
mhm,
mastering these
mhm.
herbs. You'll be set.
Yeah. And those warming herbs are not only going to make it more palatable, and then I mix in a little honey and a little bit of oat milk or whatever kind of milk you want to mix in. It's going to taste better for you, so it's more palatable. But those warming herbs, those warming spices are going to be soothing to your womb. It's almost like, you know how when you put a heating pad over your womb when you're having your period, it's like an internal heating pad. It's warming
Mm-hmm.
that space to soothe it. And then you want to think about your hormonal balance. So, again, mugwort is a good one here. Chaste tree berry, or some people call it Vitex, is a good one. Lady's mantle is going to help with hormone balance as well. Um, and then, I talked a little bit about turmeric a little bit ago as a spice, but it's also anti inflammatory. The system can be very inflamed. Spearmint is good for cooling as well.
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
love spearmint in my bath.
Hmm.
I'm able to take baths now after my little procedure I had a couple weeks ago. So now I'm like, yes, back to my
Yeah.
baths. It is definitely all of the herbs that you've mentioned. I'm just like, yep, I know, yep, yep.
Hmm.
And I always just try when I'm because I said I do custom yoni steams and bath teas and things like that, and so I always just try and also when I'm making my yoni steams, I'm making sure that the herbs are balanced in elements as well.
Yeah.
So bringing in some of that heat, but also bringing in some water a lot of times
Mhm.
for added lubrication and to increase our want to drink the water, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I really am loving this conversation. Let's go to the next question because we could stay on each question
We could.
for an hour at minimum
Mhm.
each. So let's keep going. Oh, what are some
Mhm.
techniques or ways sexual trauma can be healed with womb work?
This is a good question because our sexual trauma is going to impact our cycle. It can impact our fertility, can impact our relationship to our fertility, can come up in birth, pain, can have more pain in our pelvis. I just want to honor that 1 in 4 women have experienced sexual trauma, and our community experiences it more, our
Mm-hmm.
women. We have the murdered and missing Indigenous women, and we see that through Native American women, but we are also Indigenous women that are often our disappearances are invisibilized.
Mm-hmm.
So I just take a quick moment to honor these women. I think we have to take pause and we have to listen to our wombs. Oftentimes, when we have had womb trauma because of um, sexual trauma, we are quick to want to be okay and want to be, strong. And um, oftentimes we don't report and we may not talk about it, and it's going to spill out in other ways. So taking pause and being with. One, I'm gonna come back to yoni steaming, but I'm gonna talk about other people being part of the healing as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna go back to yoni steaming here, and I'm a survivor. I'm a victor of sexual trauma, and something that has worked well for me, a modality or a, I guess, technique with yoni steaming is doing a guided meditation where I'm cleansing my womb and meeting my great grandmothers, my great mothers.
Mm-hmm.
And the meditation looks like starting out my steam, visualizing that I'm walking really to the center of the earth through the portal of my womb. And in the center of the earth, I find my great mothers, my great grandmothers, my great great grandmothers. Maybe I know their names, maybe I don't. Whoever decides to show up for me that day. And I ask them the wisdom they have for me and the tools that they have for me to bless and cleanse my womb. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that looks like bergamot oil or frankincense or rose. Um, and then, and I sit in conversation and in meditation. And then I visualize walking deeper into my womb space. And now I'm really visualizing my own uterus. And I am washing the walls and I'm lighting incense and I might be putting on music and dancing and opening up the curtains and bringing in light,
Mm-hmm.
bringing in joy and raising the vibration. And so that's a practice that I do for myself that I love, and it feels really powerful when I'm doing my yoni steams. But I also think that it's really important to be able to have healthy yeses and nos. Again, I'm going to come back to that boundary conversation and
Mm-hmm.
having practitioners, body work practitioners that are trauma informed. So I have had both pelvic floor therapists and acupuncturists that are like very trauma informed, consent based. And with every step of everything that they do, they ask for consent. Vetting your practitioners and making sure that your practitioners work on consent basis allows you to learn where your no's are, allows you to say, oh, well, isn't that something they were going to do anyways?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, but you get a choice, right? And we get to give consent or refuse consent. Um, it's something that I do with my own clients. If I know that they have a history and they have a hard time with boundaries, I'll have them close their eyes, and we all have like our energetic bubble, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
tell them I have them close their eyes and I tell them, when you can feel me coming into your energetic bubble, say stop, say no, stop. Just as a practice in setting a healthy boundary in a safe place, in a safe way. They know I'm not going to cross this boundary, but it allows them to get in relationship with their energetic space.
Mm-hmm.
And with their eyes closed, I could be here and they can say stop, and they feel it, right? We feel when people are entering into our energetic space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Especially you can I oftentimes feel like you really can feel when people are entering into your space if they don't have authorization like at all. Like if you don't
yeah,
know them, you don't
yeah.
know their name, you don't know why they're here, you don't know who they're with, and you're in a
Let
space
Karen
where
be
you
right
can
here, too close to
feel.
me in the line. You
No,
do not
for
have
real. I'm
permission.
like,
What are you
what's
doing there?
going on?
Right.
Yeah, I've definitely been like, can you take 5 steps back, please? In the stores here, it's really
Mhm,
crazy. We have that,
mhm.
the people here are, yeah, they're a different type of
Entitled to
breed.
space that we get to own our own energetic space,
Yes, I
and
definitely.
set boundaries. The last thing I'm going to talk about is trauma healing, trauma work. EMDR is a very powerful modality, and you can, it's best if you have a practitioner, but there are some things that you can look up online where it's like rapid eye movement or tapping from left to right in connection with some of these like deeper triggers, where you don't have to tell the whole story and re-traumatize the system by telling the whole story. But at the end of the EMDR session, it feels like a thorn has just been plucked out. The thing that used to trigger you about that trauma is gone. The story still exists. Your truth is still there, but you're not impacted by the trigger any longer.
Hmm. I also like to, I've had a few clients who are, healing in a healing space from, maybe having a bad relationship, some sexual trauma, or just having a really difficult time and it being reflected in how they feel about themselves in their womb space.
Yeah.
I really like to use pine to do that
I love
sexual trauma
pine.
cleansing. And I will add it to steam sometimes, or if it's like so severe, I will just literally just do a whole pine steam And I
Mhm.
definitely, when I'm doing any type of yoni steams for any type of sexual trauma or anything along those lines, we are doing a meditation before we get on the yoni steam pot, and we're focusing on our root, because focusing on our root is going to also help us to know like what are some of those underlying issues that we maybe haven't been talking about, in
Mm.
addition to what we've experienced, right? Because that
Yeah.
could also relate to just like conversations not having been had, things being swept under the rug, whatever the situation may be. So I definitely, my Yoni Steam clients, they get the works when it comes to the trauma piece and like healing through that. And I do a lot of I like to do smudging beforehand as well.
Mhm.
And divinations. Divinations are a big thing for me in my practice and with my clients,
Mhm.
especially my Yoni Steam clients. And the reason why I feel like I maybe have a hard time is because everything that I'm doing has intentions. Everything that we're doing from the time that you come into the studio for the Yoni Steam to the time that you're leaving has intention, has a purpose, and it has a meaning. And it can be a little bit much for people. But I definitely encourage anyone who has or is suffering from any type of sexual trauma to reach out to folks that you feel most comfortable with. There are some hotlines, I believe, that you can also reach out to if you just need someone to talk. If you just need someone to hear you, you can always hit me up as well. I will listen. I promise I will. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on this topic before we go to the next question?
Um, I mean, a book just came to mind for me that I wanted to share. Is I could see the title. I mean, I could see the book. It's called Pussy Prayer,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's about being getting in relationship with our womb.
Mhm. Pussy Prayers is a really good one. I have
Mhm.
I've flipped through and read through Pussy Prayers umpteen times. And some of them Pussy Prayers has gotten me through
Right.
some situations and uncomfortable moments with myself. So
Yeah.
definitely, I also have a series. I did a Pussy Power series. I'm going to be dropping it soon. I went through and we just talked about pussy control. We talked about kung fu grip. We talked about wet. And we just talked about all the things that we need to talk about. We talked about sex, sacred energy exchange. So if you're wanting to have a little bit more insight or just, listen to some more Black women talking about ourselves and, our personal pleasures, definitely hit me up and be on the lookout for that series coming out. It is done. I'm almost done editing. It's going to
Okay.
be done very soon.
I'll keep an eye out.
Um, yeah, so let's get to this next question. I think this might be our last one.
Okay.
Might have one more. How do you introduce the womb to your daughter?
Yeah, that's a good question. I just I normalize anatomy from beginning, from the time they're really young. And so I have three daughters, 26, 21, and 13. And okay, I failed with the first one. I did fail with the first one. I told her when she started her period, she started younger than I thought she would. And I told her she'd get pregnant if she kissed a boy.
Oh no.
Y'all don't
No.
judge me. I was a young mom, but I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson.
It's
And
okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I think sometimes I my goddaughter, okay, and this she chose me to be her godmom, okay, and she just had her first boyfriend. So I get it because I'm
yeah,
like
Hold
What
on. Wait a minute.
what's going
What's
on?
happening?
Valentine's Day
Right.
was coming, and I was like, you make sure you tell that little boy that we celebrate Valentine's Day and Black Love Day. Like, I have to just figure
Uh,
out the ways to say the different things. And
have
I
the
just feel like
conversations.
this conversation coming up was really beautiful because it's like my goddaughter, she comes to me and we have conversations. We have our little godmom, goddaughter dates and do the things. And I'm very, very just forthcoming with information, the questions that she asked.
Mhm.
So when this question came to me, like, how do you introduce your womb to your daughter? And it's such a loaded question because
It is.
it's so many things. It's not just
Yep.
the anatomy, it's not just what can be produced in the womb, it's
Yep.
also the energetic connections, that
Yeah.
ancestral wisdom, the divine feminine, the connection, like through from our womb to our heart to our or read, like there's so many things. And I've been thinking about this question, like how would I
Yeah.
introduce the womb to my
Well, some
daughter?
of it is starting before that conversation. My daughter, my first, we did have some conversations about womb health, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your cotton underwear, right? What you're wearing, what you're eating, to keep up good, healthy pH for your yoni. But she started her period so young, I wasn't ready for that. So then I realized I got to be thinking about how I'm going to have this conversation in age appropriate ways because I thought she was going to be older. And our daughters are sometimes they have their period very young. So thinking about how you're going to have these age appropriate conversations. By the time I had my second, she was around when I gave birth to my third. She was 7. And so she got a lot of education around like, where do babies come from? Babies are inside the womb. They're held in the womb. Um, by the time I had my third, and then her big sister was cycling and mom was cycling, and she's aware of these things. And we're having these conversations on a regular basis that then by the time my youngest is like, 5, everybody's having their periods now. And she's like, when am I going to get boobs and bleed? Geez, this is a cool thing. I want to be introduced. When my 21-year-old was right around the age of menarche, we did a red tent ceremony for her and did sort of like this coming of age ceremony where we talked about the blood being sacred and um, ancestral knowledge and wisdom that is carried in the womb, and that it's such a strong portal for manifestation and creation. So then we also did like vision boards during that time and emphasized journaling and staying in relationship with self, that we prioritize self before these boys that are out here that may want to like impact our energetic flow,
Mm-hmm.
and how we keep our power. So
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
that's how. And then we talk about like natural family planning, not necessarily that my kids are planning to give birth, but like understanding and tracking the cycle and knowing what phase they're in and when something is off. And my kids, even from a very young age, will be like, oh, my cycle is 30 days, it's long this month, something's wrong. And then now they know to be mindful of what was different in my routine
Mm-hmm.
this month, what's going on for me. And that
Mm-hmm.
also keys me in as a mother of like, oh, are you dealing with some more stress than I realized you were dealing with? What's going on?
Mm-hmm. That's really beautiful. I remember the first year I got my cycle. My whole world changed. Like a whole bunch of things. A lot of my medical stuff started happening right when my
Mhm.
cycle came. So
Yeah.
for me, it was like, it was hell. I didn't want it. I didn't want to be a woman. I don't want to bleed. I don't want none of this shit. Like, it
Yeah.
was horrific when I was 13, 14. I had my first surgery at 14. Like,
Mhm.
having those conversations at a really young age, I think is beneficial so that, like you said, they know their cycle, they know how to track their cycle. So when it's long or it's short, they know that something is wrong.
Yeah.
I almost died at 14 bleeding 2 months, having a whole tumor the size of a preemie baby and not knowing any better,
Yeah.
just not knowing. So this conversation is so vital in understanding how we explain the womb, at what stage do we talk about the different levels of our womb. I think is so beautiful for us to be having this conversation and kind of figuring it out, and to see you with three beautiful young ladies that you've, like, okay, whatever, maybe you didn't get the first one exactly
Did
how you
not
get
get
the
that one right.
second,
I did get
but
pads with wings, and I did get chocolate. Okay, because I didn't want her to leak. But that conversation, I fumbled that whole thing.
I just think it's very beautiful. And I love when I hear moms talking about how their conversations with their daughters are very open and that their daughters will come to them with any and all questions. I think is very, very vital and very important for us to remember that we are bringing up the next generation. And also for myself, even though I have not birthed any children, I have children, I have little ones in
Yeah.
my house. Like, I have children who love me and I love them. So it's important to me to know they come to me asking these questions, how I'm going to say it in a way that's appropriate, because I definitely don't have a filter all the time.
Yeah.
So I think just like starting with anatomy, I think is the best way from jump, when
Yeah.
they're learning their body parts and exploring all of that and just being body positive and positive about our anatomy, right?
Yeah.
And just speaking life into our babies always, at, in all stages, right? I think is also very important. Did you want to
Yeah.
add anything before we get
Well,
started?
I'm just having this memory. I'm just having this memory of one of my daughters being very, very young, and she peed on herself. She had an accident. And that was one of the first conversations where I said, it's okay. Girls have accidents. We have accidents sometimes. And right now, you peed. And later, it might be blood. Like, we have these things called periods. And then when you get really old, you might pee again. So it's okay. And we're just going to clean you up and get you some new panties, and you're going to be all right. But I
Mm-hmm.
think she looked at me like, what? There's going to be blood out my vagina. Listen, I said, listen, accidents happen. We're going to talk more about it later.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be all right.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be. And I think, for me in that conversation, it was also around taking out the shame of the blood,
Mm-hmm.
because we have a lot of shame around our blood.
Yeah, there's a lot of shame around. I was embarrassed when I started my period. I started my period at school, so I wasn't ready. I wasn't
Oh, baby.
prepared. It was a whole situation. I had some decent friends at the time who were just like, "Oh, let's crowd around her and make sure that she can get to the bathroom." So it was okay,
Mhm.
but it still was embarrassing because I wasn't ready. I didn't have what I
Yeah,
needed. I had to go to the freaking office to get what I needed. The whole situation, like, it was traumatizing.
traumatizing, yeah.
It was so traumatizing. And then, I love now that women will free bleed. I I've tried to free bleed like at home, but I just can't get down with
Yeah,
how it feels for me.
yeah,
But like, I just love the freedom that we are having with our bodies now, and I feel like it will be more empowering for our young ladies that we're bringing up, for them to not have those moments of embarrassment or shame
mhm,
around actually becoming a woman and actually getting to the stage where you're about to have a period. So now all these extra things are about to start happening. Like, you got to
yeah,
monitor all the things. I think that it's so important for there to be no shame around it, which is why these conversations are so vital, because having the conversation out loud and in the open is not something that traditionally happens. So
yeah,
it's important that we have these conversations and we can, like, watch this. Especially for moms who maybe are just like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Watch this.
mhm,
Here, talk to
mhm.
Yummy Ya. Yummy Ya will help
We
you.
need we need that. We need that. Yeah, yeah. The other thing that I did for my daughters, now that I think about it, is when they were like, their pits started smelling, and I saw their little breast buds changing, I started putting together a little pack in their backpacks. It had little wipes, a new pair of underwear, um, pads, and some chocolate because we need chocolate.
We need
Okay.
chocolate
We
always.
need chocolate. Um, so that was something else that I remember I did because, like you, I started my period at school and it was so embarrassing and I was unprepared and I didn't know. But we recognize that our daughters are like, well, them pits are starting to smell. She's getting close.
Girl. Girl.
Put the deodorant on, you know? They don't know. They
Yes.
got to get into these new routines. But
Mm-hmm.
that was another opportunity to be able to share with them.
Yeah. I my girl squad, I introduced to them the Honey Pot brand.
Hmm.
One of the girls was like, "Oh, I only use Honey Pots," and I was like, "Okay, girl." You know, but just
Cute.
being able to introduce them to some black owned, founded, herbal, sanitary products for us, made for us by us. It was a beautiful moment. And so I think a couple of girls are only like, I only use Honey Pot now. And but I had to tell them because one girl was like, I started my period. We like went to this field day where they do like all these field activities. And one of the girls like started her cycle. She's like, I don't have anything. Do you have anything? I was like, I only have Honey Pot and they're herbal. So you're going to feel a little sensation down there. And she put it on, she used it. She's like, the sensation's not so bad. It feels a little cooling. I was like, yeah, it's supposed
Yeah.
to calm down that
Soothing.
whole area and make it easy for your flow to come and comfort you. She's like, I like this. So, having those moments with young ladies and being able to introduce them to natural products and ways of caring for themselves is very, very important to me.
Yeah.
All right, we got one more question
Okay.
and then we are going to be done for the evening. So, what advice do you have for building a relationship with your womb?
Hmm. I hate to harp on yoni steam so much. But there's also just like, when you can be mindful throughout the day, get in touch with your pelvic floor, do some Kegels. What do you feel? What do you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Um, does anything come to you? Does a message come to you? Does a thought come to you? Does
Mm-hmm.
a feeling come to you? And you don't have to judge it, just being with it. I think
Mm-hmm.
just bringing our attention to our pelvic floor, it really is important. Our pelvic floor is so important for um, just the way that our spine operates, the way that our hips, legs, feet, all of that operate. And so just getting in touch with what's going on in my womb right now. We are so taught in the society to be disconnected that,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the Puritans that colonized us. Like our ancestors danced and moved their pelvis all of the time. Were in relationship with their pelvis all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're very cut off in this society from
Yeah.
being in a relationship with our womb. So drawing your attention, your yoni steams, journal, read that
Oh,
book,
yes.
Pussy Prayer.
Yes. I will. So for me, my womb journey really, really began when I first read Sacred Woman.
Mm,
Waking up at 4 in the morning and doing those fire breaths woke my
mhm.
womb up. It woke the divine
Yeah.
feminine in me up for real. The fire breaths, those of us who are in Orisha Hoodoo Institute have taken the fire certification, then you know what I'm talking about, these fire breaths.
Hmm.
The fire breaths for me was the first wake up of like the divine feminine within my womb. I was reading
Mm.
Sacred Woman, was trying to do Shalanda Mini Fees, Sacred Woman Circle. This is so many years ago, but
Mm.
like several years ago. doing Sacred Circle here in Portland with some of the women, because I had already been trying to do Sacred Woman by myself. And
Mhm.
the way that Sacred Woman really works and is beneficial is if you're doing it with a group of women.
Yeah.
And so the fire breaths, I suggest, if you have not read Sacred Woman, read Sacred Woman. You can find a Sacred Woman group. Queen Afua doesn't directly, she's no longer directly officiating new Sacred Women. You have to come in under someone under Queen Afua now. But
Yeah.
I still suggest Sacred Woman um, books and mentorship training program, as well as the fire certification with Black Spectrum Network and Orisha Hoodoo Institute. The fire breaths for me not only like jump started the electricity in my heart and my lungs, right? But it also just woke the divine feminine up for me.
Mhm.
And I felt the fluttering in my womb. That's how I knew it was like, hi, we're here. Because those fire breaths really just kind of, that electricity shot down to my womb and was like, oh, hi, I do
Mhm.
exist. Here I am. So it's been a long journey getting to know and understanding my womb, my divine feminine, and all of that energy. And I utilize breathing techniques right alongside meditation while I'm yoni steaming. And
Mhm.
it does everything that I needed to do. But I definitely agree with just sitting with yourself sometimes. Do some breaths, close your eyes, and recognize where you're feeling any type of sensation. Doesn't matter where it's at in your body, just recognize it, feel it. And then after you've processed, try and start pinpointing, okay, what was that sensation about? Maybe do a divination, talk to a doula or a midwife or someone who is very versed and educated and knowledgeable in our womb space. Or you could talk to me as well. I have 40 years of experience dealing with my own personal womb space. So, definitely, when you're building the relationship with your womb, you want to take baths regularly. And if you don't have a shower for a bath, I'm sure there's a place where you can go and soak somewhere. It doesn't have to be a bath where you're like in there washing your body. You need to relax your body, relax your muscles, allow your body to relax in the warm water. It's not about taking a bath and washing yourself, it's about sitting in the water and allowing the water to be a conduit for you with your womb.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so, yes, do you have anything else you want to say for building a relationship with your womb?
I really love that you brought up the sacred woman and baths, and it reminds me of a ceremony that I hold that I was gifted from my grandmother. She's Afro Panamanian in Central and South America. Um, some of our traditions were kept more intact from the motherland. And so, part of that starts out with a yoni steam, but then it goes into a limpia or a cleansing bath. And we practice this, we practice cleansing baths with my Elay practices cleansing baths as well, right? So maybe you're doing a white bath, but part of the ceremony that I do, I use an herbal bath or an herbal broom, excuse me, and I like beat the different parts of the body where the joints are actually portals where like energy can be released, given away unknowingly or knowingly, and then you can take on other energies that don't belong to you
Mm-hmm.
unknowingly that way. Or maybe you do know, maybe you have some sort of um, idea of you feel like you pick something up.
Mm-hmm.
But I take this
I,
herbal broom and then I hit these points 52 times, one for every week in the year, and are saying a prayer to call back the energy that has been released knowingly or unknowingly, and release
Mm-hmm.
that energy. And you can do this yourself. Like, you can go out and pick rosemary or rue or lavender, things that are strong, protective, and cleansing herbs, and beat these different parts of your own body with the broom and say your prayer. And I also want to, something we haven't mentioned is aligning your ceremony and ritual with the cycles of the moon. Like, we are
Mm-hmm.
very, just like the ocean, we're very connected to and impacted by the energies of the moon. So when the moon is full, this is a really good time to practice or involve ceremonies around release, because this is the part of the moon that is going to be starting to empty until we get to
Mm-hmm.
a new moon. And then around new moon is good time to set intentions, find out what kind of energies is this moon bringing with it. And then um you can get really in, like, specific around your intentions to work with the energy of the moon and your own goals in life that you want to manifest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I definitely agree. Moon water was one of my first. Every new moon, every full moon, I was making moon water. I say probably like 5 years ago. You catch me, I'd have every new moon and full moon water with spring water in a different jar and
Wow.
labeled, because I would drink these waters and I would use these waters in my bath and all these things. And so I still use moon water. I definitely do. But being connected to the moon is so much deeper for me now. It's
Yeah.
way, way deeper. I don't think that so our world really understands how much the moon means to us. Our cycles are definitely connected to the moon. Um, we know the cycles of womanhood and the cycles of the moon, they're linked up, as well as the times of day, right? And so I've considered myself in my afternoon time of my life, right? Like, I'm not exactly a mother yet, but yes, I'm in that stage. The afternoon time is sometimes when the moon is out during the daytime, it's kind of like high,
Yeah.
during noon. So that's kind of where I am. And when it comes to the moon, what I've done to expand my work with the moon directly is I've really actually started paying more attention to the waning and waxing cycles of the moon as well, to kind of do that
Mhm.
reflection piece and to
Yeah.
check in on the things I'm releasing and the things that I'm setting intentions for. Like, are there added things that I need to be doing? Is there something I need to stop doing if I'm feeling like, okay, I set this intention and the moon is growing and maybe things are not going my way? During that time phase, I'm actually using the moon to do that reflection piece to get in better alignment if I'm not already there. And it speaks volumes for me. There was a comment maybe last year. I wish people would pay more attention to the other cycles of the moon instead of the full moon and the new moon, because there's so many people who do new moon and full moon rituals. And
Yep.
I was
Yeah.
just kind of like, first I was thrown off a little bit because we don't do business together like that, but we definitely do the same type of business. So of course, if we're in alignment with what our businesses are doing, we're probably going to all be having the same type of like events and things, but with
Right.
different things. But it did actually just make me think more. So for in the last year, I've just started picking up my practice with waning and waxing in
Mhm.
addition to full moon and new moon, right? Because those phases of the moon matter as well. As
Yeah.
the moon is growing, so is your intention, so are the things that you're manifesting. And so while the moon is growing from new moon, is the time when you need to be putting forth all your actions to get your manifestation to come to fruition.
Yeah.
Something that
Especially if you're focusing on, like, you want to work through, agreed, you are already a mother.
Ashe, Ashe,
Mhm.
I am. Hola, Ia.
And something is like if you're working on doing multiple steams towards releasing something or calling in your fertility, that might impact, am I working with the waning moon or am I working with the waxing moon when I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing these ceremonies?
Mm-hmm. It definitely does. It's very the moon controls a lot of what happens in our world. So not only our bodies, our moon, our cycles, but also the water, like you said. And
Mhm.
water is our bodies are majority water, our world is majority water, and the moon literally controls the current and the
Yeah.
waves of the water. So we need to be paying attention to these things, um, in coordination spiritually and physically with our bodies, not leaving anything out to be missed.
Mhm.
I thank you so very much for joining me today. I've
I
had
love
a
this.
very wonderful time having this conversation with you today. The womb is very sacred to me. I feel like in the past, I say like 15 years is really when I really had to start figuring out my connection with my womb and figuring out what was going on with my body. And having a connection with my womb has brought me to where I am today. It has brought my essence full force in a lot of ways. And I really encourage everyone to learn about their sacred womb and to tap into their ancestral wisdom. Before I get off, I just wanted to say really quickly, if you have not joined our app, the Risha Hoodoo Institute app, please do so. Yesterday, we just did a free whole spring ritual, and we have
Oh, beautiful.
monthly free rituals in there. The app does cost $22, obviously, but that's $22 with so much free information and resources, connection, and women all over this world. Quite frankly, we have sisters who are in the United Kingdom, in the islands, all
Wow.
over the United States in this space, all with their own knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And we invite you to come and join us. We have not Morocco. We went to Morocco last year. This year, we're going to Ghana in September. If you want to come and join us in Ghana, go join the app. That's where you're going to find all of the information and all of the resources that you need. You definitely want to be a part of this app. We are doing some real things over here, very live, very pointed, okay? Like we're not this is not for the weak. This is for the strong and the serious. Okay. If you want that information, but you want to take your time, join in the app. If you're looking for some free mentorship, if you want someone to come in and show you the basics, you want someone to tell you what ritual protocol is, explain the four directions to you and why they matter. If you want any of these things, come in and join us. The link is here. I will drop it in the chat as well. Join.learnarishahoodoo.com. This link will take you to the app. From there, you can join the app. And then from there, you can find free mentorship and all the things. I know Priestess Omisika has a mentorship coming up in April. Priestess Oshun Kamibi Ifa Kemi has free mentorship and a paid mentorship, which I think her paid mentorship is a 6 month mentorship, maybe. So you might have to wait to the next one for that one. But free mentorship is ongoing. Myself and a few other priestesses will be dropping some mentorships later this year. So get in this app. You want to sit at the feet of elders? Come sit at my Ia's feet. She is going to give it to you just how you need it and exactly how it's meant to be said. I am Priestess Olaia Ifashabi. And as I always say, test these waters if you want to. Peace.
Peace.